Well, here it is. It looks pretty good. It's a little rough up next to the mill. Not bad enough to hurt anything. The thing with these, that roughness, you've got so many odd shapes underneath there. The way this thing is shaped underneath, you got this ridge and this collar back here. It is so hard to get an even heat on these things to pour them. You need an even heat all over or else you don't get an even finish. Now we got to file down and get the overpour filed down flat with the top of the bearing casing. I wanted to show you something here. So I got me a corn cob and broke it in half, and I was going to show you a good way to make you a quick and easy handle for a file. Now this cob was a little wet. It tried to split a little bit on the high end, but that'll get you by. You can drill the end of it out and make it go further. This is a big tang on this file, so it ain't gonna go all the way. But that'll work. It'll work to get the job done, give you something to hold of, won't hurt your hand. Just wanted to share that with you. We're gonna go over finishing the Babbitt bearings after you pour them. There's a lot of details to this, and we're gonna go over quite a few of them on this video. I wanted to show you my Babbitt file. I mean, I make handles on the lathe, nice wood handles, but I just wanted to do something quick. Not have to go hunt handles and mess with all that. This is quick and easy and it works good. This is my Babbitt file that I found. You can see right there it says flat Babbitt. I've been looking for one of these babies for a long time. And when you're pouring Babbitt, it saves you a lot of time and work because it's a tool designed for the job, and these teeth, the way they are, they just shave that Babbitt right off. And I peck it a little bit and clean it out, but I don't know if you've ever seen a file card. You just take that file card, it's got little rough burr wires, and it's how you clean a file out when you're using a file, a mill file or any kind of file that you need to clean out. You're getting shavings stuck up in that file. It works real good. It'll clean your file out. This file's a little different because of the pattern. It's not the same hardly with this card as cleaning out a regular, like a mill bastard file or something, but it works good. Clean them teeth, keep your file cutting good. File card. So this is one thing pouring Babbitt bearings. If you over pour a lot, that's just more work for you. But when you got that stuff hot and you're trying to get it poured in there, best you can do, you're gonna over pour more than you want to. The way this Babbitt file works, the way the teeth are like a crescent moon, and as you push, it just shaves that Babbitt off. You can see the little flakes there. Real fine flakes. And when you get down to the cast iron housing, you don't want to rub your file on that. So what I do is I tilt my Babbitt file up on its edge, and you can very gently scratch, and it will take off more that way than it will laying flat. And if you happen to run up on the cast iron with it, then you are not going to damage your main part of your cutting. edge on your file, and I'll only use one side to do that with. Like this side will be the side I use to get down close to the cast iron. This side will be just for Babbitt when I know I'm never going to touch the iron. And that'll keep my file in good shape and make it last as long as possible. You can hear I'm touching that cast a little bit. You just try to go real slow and gentle, do the best you can, and cut that Babbitt off to where it's down nice and flat. Depends on how steady your hand is or how good you can do without hitting the cast. That's almost down. It is on that side. Move over here. See if I can. So working this direction with this overpour, when it gets down so thin, it'll just start flaking off, and then you can take it down on down to the cast iron like it's supposed to be. You can see how it's starting to, all the overpour get off and getting down real flush with the bearing housing. We just keep very gently working that. So you can see right there, see that overpour? It's too high, it's on top of the bearing housing. We want it down perfectly flush. You just keep working it, just like that. You can see there how it gives you a nice, smooth finish, down flush with the top of your bearing housing. You can see how rough this is because of where the Babbitt ride or the pouring putty was. So I'm going to take my Babbitt file, just very gently start filing, cutting that back. See how nice and neat that is now? The next step is when you're pouring on a shaft that way, the shaft may have real tiny imperfections in it, a little roughness. So we want this thing to be as slick as we can. This is called a Babbitt scraper. And the way this thing works is you lay it in the bearing and you're able to scrape very gently any imperfections, and it scrapes on both sides. You work it just like that. Any imperfections in that cast will come out. And I can see that's taking little minute burrs off the inside of our bearing. And what that's going to do is make it fit that shaft and be closer to perfect. These bearings, a lot of people, you look at a bearing on an old piece of equipment, a lot of times them was done in a machine shop and they were poured and then they were machined out perfect. That's why they look just perfect. I don't know I've poured some that looks real close to perfect, but not perfect like machine shop perfect. And that's something that we can do, you know, if it's necessary or if the customer insists, but I've always done them this way and they've always give good service. The main thing is you get them trued up nice and you get them, you have to do a process called bedding them in. If you do that process right and the customer keeps them lubricated, they'll just last and last and last. Like I said, the bearings that was in this mill is a 1971, and that's 50 years. And they have run this mill. I mean, I dressed it once for them, dressed the stones, and come back, and since then they had run 1 million pounds of corn through this mill right here. And that is putting some wear on the bearings. And they take good care of their bearings, because if they didn't, they wouldn't last. So this thing is, we've got it scraped out real nice, and it took a lot. I can tell a big difference. It's way closer to perfect, and it'll be even better after we bed it in. Another very important factor when you're pouring Babbitt bearings, so this edge right here is like knife sharp. It was, my camera wasn't on, so I'm gonna go over this again with you. This edge will be knife sharp after you work it down, this corner right here. Okay, so that shaft is in here turning, and this particular bearing, the shaft is gonna be turning clockwise from this end. Okay? So your lubrication, your grease or oil comes in from the top. It goes down on the shaft, and that shaft turns and it carries the oil and grease down to this bearing to keep everything lubed. Okay, if this edge of this bearing is knife sharp, it's going to just scrape that lubrication off of that shaft and starve the bottom of this bearing for lubrication. So what we want to do is take our knife and very gently shave that corner off. Just like that. Keep it as even as possible. We don't want to go all the way in or all the way out. We want to leave these ends of this bearing intact, up tight to the shaft to keep the lubrication from working its way out the ends and forcing it down on the shaft. So we just take our knife and very gently knock off that corner right there. It don't have to be a whole lot, but you do need to knock that knife sharp corner off so that that lubrication can get pulled down in to keep this bearing lubricated so that it'll last.